Hi everyone. Perhaps I'll invite you to just kind of sit back and relax into the post-lunch slump. I'm going to show you some pictures of our eco-village. This is where I came from. That's where I came from this morning. At the top is my home. On the bottom left is my family. It's my cow. I'm very attached to my cow at the moment. She gave birth a week ago. So I'm going to have to cut short this afternoon to rush off back home to milk her. And those are my neighbours. Now, speaking to a lot of you in the breaks and in the workshops, I get the impression that most of you have heard of Lammas, and I'm just going to proceed on that basis. Myself and 3 other men got together in 2005. And we set ourselves a challenge to create an eco-village. More than just create an eco-village, get an eco-village through the planning system. We had no money between us. We had no experience of housing development or building regs or planning. What did we have? We had kind of intention and passion and a lucky break. Pembrokeshire at the time had just launched an innovative local policy. It was one of those kind of small bits of legislation that gets kind of lost. And had we not kind of picked up on it, I'm sure it would have died a quiet death in obscurity. But, you know, one of us was on the case, and one of us kind of saw it. It wasn't me, it was actually Tone on the right there. And recognise the potential there. We wanted to create a kind of new settlement pattern. We wanted to re-examine the way that we look at our landscape and our land base. We wanted to look at alternative ways of producing food and energy and living on the land. You know, dare I be so bold, in a kind of similar vein, obviously perhaps not so grand as what CAT did here in the 70s. We want to push those boundaries. And the key to that is getting people back into the landscape. So the first thing we did is we set out looking for land in Pembrokeshire. We were fortunate enough to find what we thought of as a fairly blank canvas. 76 acres of degraded pasture, a bit of neglected woodland. It did have a mill pond, but fairly ordinary land. The kind of land you see around here. We're about 160 metres above sea level, so conventionally it's looked on as very kind of low grade, poor quality land, hill farming, not fit for anything much other than sheep. And we set up a website, we found interested people, and we started working out a kind of plan, putting together a settlement pattern based largely on conventional ways of looking at property and ownership, trying to give people a sense of financial security, so a sense of something that's really affordable and something that's really attractive. It's kind of based around a collective of plots, and the kind of goal was to be able to empower people to set themselves up with a kind of low impact small holding for something in the region between £40,000 and £60,000. It did involve a community hub building. We were aware that if we were successful, we would need something to kind of channel the visitors. We would need sort of a bridge between us and what we were doing and our own kind of homes and private lives and reaching out to the wider world. I mean, in this we were really aware, 9 families in a field in Pembrokeshire is not going to make a huge difference. But if we can kind of reach out and scale up, then we can potentially make a bigger difference. Planning was interesting. Planning was different for us and for planners, because our primary concern was for the kind of land use. We put as much, if not more, energy and effort into designing the landscape and into designing the kind of infrastructure that underpins the landscape. Where's the energy coming from? How do the water patterns flow through the landscape? How can we imitate the natural ecologies to make them as diverse and as productive as we can? That was new, very new for the planning system. The planning system is used to set 4 elevations in a plan. We had to present something really quite different in order to satisfy them that we could actually be productive with the landscape. And it was very much this balance of lifestyle and livelihood that we were aiming for. It's a kind of, I think perhaps some people see it as a get-out card or an opt-out clause, in that if you can detach yourself from massive overheads and you can set up yourself in a small holding or in a community setting with very little capital, and you can meet your own kind of needs directly from the land, making your own electric, sourcing your own water, growing your own food, you can actually live on relatively little. So it's it's part lifestyle and part livelihood. The map on your right is how the land looked when we bought it, and the green map is a kind of model of how we expected it to look. I won't go into the detail. We went through the mill, partly through our own naivety, and it was a fantastic learning curve, and it was tough. 3 years in the planning system, and now, in fact, through Renew Wales, one of the things I do is I advise prospective applicants about the planning system, because we kind of learned the hard way. But we got there in the end. We began work on the site in 2009. You can see the big diggers there. We started off with really small diggers, and then got medium-sized diggers, and then got big diggers in. It's a lot about infrastructure for us. We're taking a landscape, the landscape that you see when you're driving here, all these kind of fields and the sheep and the hedgerows. It's been designed, it's been created, it's been designed that way for monoculture, for hill farming, for sheep farming, for tractors. And I guess we're kind of redesigning the landscape to create the ability for a human scale farming. This is an example of a family who sold their house, their terraced house in Liverpool, Katie and Leander. They had no experience of building anything, absolutely anything at all, and no experience of growing before coming to Lammas. In fact, I think I'm doing all right for time. Leander and Katie showed me with some pride their extension to their guinea pig house, which was their first DIY project before coming to Lammas, and it was really, really flimsy. And this is what they've built. It's a kind of stepping stone house. It's not their main house. Their main house is much bigger, and it's enabled them to kind of break their teeth, so to speak, on natural building. It cost them £8,000, and it works really well, This is another example. This is natural builder Simon Dale, who's quite famous in natural building circles, building an earth-sheltered house out of entirely natural materials. That's quite a challenge in terms of dealing with damp and such issues like that. Now, midwinter, I visit Simon and Jasmine fairly regularly. Midwinter, well, in fact, some of you are aware, we went through a bit of a kind of friction with building regs, and one of the things that Simon had to do was remove his stove because it wasn't certified by a HETAS engineer. That was probably over a year ago. He hasn't lit it since. It performs so well in terms of passive heat that you can go and visit on a winter's day and it's warm and comfortable and dry. The project is essentially self-funded in that the 9 small holdings pay for themselves. Families have been able to who've got some savings, 20 grand maybe, or who have taken out an extra mortgage, have been able to fund all that themselves. But we did manage to get funding for the community hub, which is fantastic. It was a bit of a double-edged sword in that there was an incredibly tight time scale attached to it, and that got cut off March 2011. So we're 95% there with that building, which is great because it is functioning even if it isn't signed off. And we run courses from there, we run open days, and that is a fantastic facility for us. It also has a certified kitchen so that we can value add to our produce. So yeah, people always ask, what's it really like? You know, are you living the dream? And it is amazing. It's really fantastic living in an eco-village, being your own boss, knowing everybody. There comes a point when the land begins to support you. You know, most meals we have contain large elements from our land. Our income is coming in from the land, and it just feels great. It can feel a bit like living in a goldfish bowl at times, but we do have systems in place to kind of channel that so that that's not too stressful. If anybody wants to come and visit, every Saturday throughout the summer there are guided tours. There's a range of courses and volunteer opportunities if anybody wants to see what we're doing firsthand. We run courses for local schools and one-off education events as well. We've just done our 3rd year annual monitoring report. So we've got 5 years to kind of set up and prove viability. We're generating 1/3 of the traffic that would be expected from 9 houses in the countryside in a conventional setting. As a settlement, we've got a One Planet footprint, and at the moment we're generating approximately £43,000 worth of produce from the land. That's set to rise to about £79,000 worth of produce from the land. Now, some of that we consume in-house, some of it gets sold out, and a bit of it is courses. But to compare, I don't know if it's a fair comparison because the whole food industry is distorted by the EU subsidies, but the previous tenant farmer, John Thomas, who had that 76 acres before us, was making something of the order of £2,500 or £3,500 through sale of land before we got there. So, you know, we're really upping the productivity. And as part of what I'm doing here, you know, we help emerging groups, either single households or eco-hamlets. There's a national policy in Wales, so that's to say that anybody can buy a piece of farmland or woodland and embark on a One Planet development project, either as a single household or as a group of people. The planning bar is quite high and it's very doable. There are 4 applications across Wales at the moment. By the end of the year there'll be at least a dozen. Some single households, there's 1 4-unit development in Carmarthenshire. Basically, they're wanting you to live a sustainable lifestyle, build a natural dwelling, or a dwelling from natural materials that you can heat and fuel from your land, grow a good portion of your own food and make some kind of income from land-based activity. And that could be flowers, or it could be could be anything to do with the land, woodcraft, butterflies, pumpkin soups, whatever. And I feel kind of honoured and blessed because it's been such an amazing journey to be there and to see people from all walks of life, from all over the UK come, get dumped in a way in a bleak field in North Pembrokeshire and just build something that's really beautiful and really productive and really rewarding. Thank you.
Well, thank you.